students, welcome to another Mr. Ness screencast. Today's aim is unauthorized immigration, and here are your objectives. Please pause the video, look these questions over, and get ready to copy some vocab terms and take some notes. You learned earlier that before 1924, the U.S. had an open immigration policy welcoming most immigrants. And I say most because there were restrictions on people from China and Japan. America needed workers for Western expansion and industrialization in the 1800s, so laws at this time made it really easy for people to immigrate. The opposite of an open immigration policy is called a closed or restrictive immigration policy, and these are laws that discourage immigration. The Immigration Act of 1924 is an example of a closed immigration policy because it led to reduced immigration to the U.S. Note that immigration policy lies on a spectrum. A country or a law is rarely completely open or completely closed. Instead, they're somewhere along the spectrum, with some countries having laws that are more or less restrictive than others. Closed immigration policies may reflect xenophobia, which means hostility to people from other countries. Xenophobia ebbs and flows with other trends like economic downturns or conflict in other countries. I have a hard time understanding xenophobia in America because outside of Native Americans, everyone in America is either an immigrant or is descended from immigrants. And yet xenophobia persists. Despite closed immigration policies, immigrants may choose to defy the law and immigrate to a country anyway, or remain in a country after their legal permission has expired. And these people are called unauthorized immigrants. In class, you'll look at some common arguments surrounding this issue. Now let's look at some ways that the government can respond to unauthorized immigrants. One possible response is called amnesty. Granting amnesty means that the government forgives the crime of illegal entry and gives the immigrant legal status. Often, amnesty is a path of several steps that immigrants must follow to remain in the country, with the final step being obtaining citizenship. A different response is called deportation. Deportation means expulsion from the country. The government apprehends the immigrant and forcibly returns him or her to their home country. In the United States, deportation is carried out by two departments in the executive branch of the federal government. One is called ICE, Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, and the other is called the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. In response to the threat of deportation, residents of some cities in the U.S. have voted to become what are known as sanctuary cities. And sanctuary cities are cities whose local government institutions like the police, the courts, and the schools have decided to limit their cooperation with federal immigration agents. For example, if an unauthorized immigrant is stopped by a police officer while driving, any information taken by that officer will not be entered into a federal database. The goal of sanctuary cities is to protect immigrants from deportation. But they are very controversial because they are a local challenge to the power of the federal government. In other words, a city is choosing to disobey federal immigration laws. You might remember from U.S. history that the sharing of power between local governments and federal governments is called federalism. There have been many conflicts throughout U.S. history over just how much power each side has, and sanctuary cities represent another front in that conflict. There are currently dozens of sanctuary cities in the U.S. Some examples are New York, New York, Los Angeles, California, and Seattle, Washington. Sanctuary cities have become very controversial, with some states going so far as to ban them. Texas, for example, passed a law declaring that the government would fine any city $25,000 for every day that it refuses to cooperate with federal agents. All right, it's time to review the objectives, and if you don't know the answer to any of them, rewind the video and look again. I will see you in class. Bye, students.